Follow along in this tutorial and you'll create this part and this drawing. Make sure, however, you're following the instructions to make sure you're working on the right stuff. Now, I just want to pause for a second and say that I'm going to show you in this video an appropriate way to do this, a reasonable way to do it, but there's got to be a better way. So I challenge you to think about ways to make the process smoother, faster, more efficient, whether this be through keyboard shortcuts, hidden menu items, or just plain old better ways of thinking. Try to find those and share them with other people. All right, so I think it's a good idea to make sure we get our part name established early following good part naming process and all those kinds of wonderful things. So that's what I'm doing here. Just trying to make sure that's taken care of. I need to make sure I'm saving my part frequently throughout the model build so I don't lose the work that I've done. So I'm building here part A from visualization exercise number 1. I'm going to be making a solid model of it. And what I'm starting with here is creating a basic sketch, as in a CAD sketch. Now I'm doing this placing the origin according to the instructions. So yeah, you just need to make sure you're doing that kind of thing, putting the origin in the right spot. I'm also checking in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, bottom right-hand, to make sure that I'm using millimeters as my units. That's an important thing to start with before we get going. So you can see here I've just made the first cube extruded up 1 unit. And for part A, from visualization exercise number 1, I have 2 cubes. One's going to be this 1 millimeter high cube, and then I've got a 3 millimeter high cube coming up in just a second. What I'm going to do is pick that top plane as my sketch plane, and I want to look normal to that. So I'm going to right click on that button in the feature tree and tell it that I want to look at the normal view of that sketch plane. Now what I'm doing is I'm trying to pick right near the corner to make sure that the computer knows I want those points to be coincident. Now these green kind of things that appear next to the box represent some of the constraints that the computer's working under. We're going to see those come to play a little bit more in this model build here. So I'm going to tell it that I like this sketch because it's looking pretty good one by one. I'm going to hit that green button that says OK. Now you can see the sketch is highlighted blue. And if I unclick from that, I'm going to say I want to extrude and I need to pick that plane again. If I would have left it blue, it would have just automatically wanted to extrude that one. You can see over on the left there, I'm changing the height that I want this extrusion to go. Now to make this view orthographic or isometric, I'm picking that the thing that you saw me pick there. And also I'm getting rid of the planes so that now my part looks a lot like my sketch that I created. Now it's time for me to kind of analyze this and see how well I did. So I've opened up the mask properties, and by opening the mask properties I can see that the volume is precisely what it should be, 4 cubic millimeters. If I were off by a small amount, I would know that one of my dimensions was not exactly right. Now I'm going to create a drawing for this part, and I'm going to use a B-size drawing, and this is going to bring up the drawing format. I'm going to tell it what part I want to go in there, and I'm going to tell it what views I want to go in, and I want to pick these 4 views, the same 4 views we've kind of been visualizing while we've been creating the part. Here my parts have come in. Now I can move these around, and that's good, but I'm going to have to move them from the center one because that will control both the top view and the right view. And the isometric view gets to just be off by itself, and I like to place it right there in the corner. Now when you think about placing these, you want to place them in such a way that your dimensions will look good. And at this point, all of these dimensions are for the purpose of communication. So I want to center the number in the dimension lines, and I want to be careful about what I'm dimensioning to. In the bottom left corner of this view is my datum. That means I'm referencing everything off of that. All the dimensions are coming off of that. Now, any drawing needs to have the opportunity to have some notes. And in these notes, we need to put things that would be important to the people who are going to be creating this part or working on this part or doing something more with this part. Now, this is a simple exercise, so there's not a lot to say about this part, but I'm going to make up a note here just to help us understand that this can be done. All right, and then I've got my title block here, and my title block is the part of the drawing that contains lots of valuable information, such as the material and things like that. Now, if I want to edit this, I'm going to click. Actually, I've got to go up to this thing and say I want to edit the title block. When I click right in the middle of the box, I can add in some text. And here I'm saying that this is going to be aluminum 6061 T4. And then I'm going to say that the finish is polished. There's lots of different kinds of finishes I can have, but I think it's really important just to be able to recognize that these things have to be specified. I'm putting my name there as the person who's drawn it. I've drawn the date. I'm going to intentionally leave blank the checked boxes because this drawing has not been checked by anybody. I don't want to check it myself. I am gonna do that, but it's inappropriate for the person who drew the drawing to check the drawing officially. The person who draws it's gonna have to check it, but not as an official capacity. Someone else needs to do that. Make sure your rev number is going in there. For this part's Rev A, because it's the first time I'm releasing this drawing out to anyone. So if I like what's there, I'm going to hit this green button. I'm back to now looking at the drawing that I created. All right, so things are looking good here. I'm saving this drawing, making sure that I have a way to get back to it at some point in the future. Okay, this is just telling me, it's just asking me if I want to. Well, you can read that. All right, so at this point we've made the part drawing, and we've made the part, and we've made the part drawing, and that's where we're at. So I want to just spend a tiny bit of time looking at this and seeing if I think it's good, seeing if I think it's right. So I'm going back to the part. And I want to show you how I can change this in a parametric way. So I'm just going to choose any one of these dimensions. I double-clicked on the part, change the dimension, in this case to 3. And this is the beauty of working in a solid CAD model that's parametric in nature. I can change all of those parameters, and you can see, look, my drawing has already updated with that information, which of course is fantastic. And when it did that, it's moved some of my views off the title block. So I'm not really liking that so much. What I'm going to do is grab this center one and just kind of pull it back a little bit, and then adjust these views in such a way that things are looking good. I'm adding the dimension that I need because that new part now needs a dimension. And that's that.